The purpose of this lesson is to show you how to create your own flash button. Let's begin. So we're going to go into ActionScript 3, and we need to define our stage size first. So go up to your Modify menu, Document. In Modify menu Document, you want to define your stage size, your dimensions. We're going to create a button. So I'm going to pick a standard button, and this is going to be 120 by 60. Pick the background color that would match the background color of your page. So think about what you are going to be using on your page. Hit OK. Now notice that you have your button, your background button. So the gray is assuming that I'm using that color gray as the background on my page. What we need to do now is we want to create our button. So we're going to be using our rectangle tool. So click on your rectangle tool. Do you want to have a rounded edge for your button, or would you rather have a squared off edge? It's your choice. I'm going to round my edges ever so slightly. So I have them all rounding in at 5. You can determine your fill color for your button. We're going to be making a button for Morris Hills High School. So think about what color background do you want for your button. I am going to use a gradient. So I'm using a circular gradient. Remember that you can play with your gradient by going into your color palette. So if you go under Window and Color, notice that you can differentiate your color palette. So if I don't want that end color to be black, I can choose a white. I can even add a third color by simply clicking at the bottom of the line and picking a different color. If you don't want that color, again, just pull it off. So that's a review, but don't forget that you have your color palette. Okay. So I've defined my color palette. Do you want a line to go around your button? In my case, I'm going to use a white. I'll stick with that. So draw your shape to fill up your button. Don't forget, if you want to adjust it, you can use your free transform tool. Now, in addition, I can click on my button and notice that I can add text to my button. So far I like what I see here. If by chance you wanted to use filters, you could create this shape in Fireworks and import it into Adobe Flash. So if you want that, you can. The buttons like we've created before. Now let me create some text. My text is going to be my MHHS. So I'm going to type MHHS. But of course, I don't want that font nor that color. So let me use a black color, and I'm going to choose a font. I think I'm going to try that. Now, I want to apply a filter to my text. So I'm going down to my filter property, and I'm going to add a filter, and I think I want to add a bevel. And let me see if I can add a gradient bevel. Ah, that looks nice. That makes me happy. I want my text to maybe be a little bit bigger, so I can increase my size. And then I just have to resize my box to accommodate it. All right, that looks good. So I have now made a button. What I want to do now is convert this into a symbol. So select all of your items. That means the outline as well as the inline. You know what? I'm going to play with that outline a bit. I'm just double clicking on the outline, and I'm going to change that up. I think I like that better, but I have to make that stroke a little bit bigger to see it. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that's looking good for me. So I've made my button. Again, you can design your button any way you wish. Select all the elements of the button and let's convert it to a symbol. Do you remember the keyboard shortcut to convert to a symbol? F8. I'm going to call this MHHS, but now instead of it being a graphic, it's going to be a button. I always like my registration point in the center. Hit OK. So now what you see on the stage is a button. We are now going to define the different parts to a button. In my library, I see my button. Notice that I have a new icon to represent button. Double-click on the button that's on the stage. This will open up your button next to your Scene 1. Notice that you have your button open. Check out your timeline. Your timeline looks different than it has in the past. We have an up and over, a down, and a hit. The up is what the person will see when it's on the web page. The over is what the person will see when they bring their mouse over the button. Down is what the person will see when you press down on your mouse. And the hit is the clickable area. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define the look for my over and my down. In my over, I'm going to copy the contents from my first keyframe to my second cell, or my second frame. Hit F6. Copy keyframe. I want to make a change to my overstate. So let's just change up the text. I can highlight my text and I can go into my property window and change up my color. So let's say I want it to go to a gray. I could also change the size. I can make it a little bit bigger. So now what you notice is my up and my over, it gets a little bit bigger. Let me just center that, and I'm just using my arrows. If I wanted to change the background, I could do that. But I'm keeping it simple. So you can make any change to your button. Here's my up, and here's my over. Deselect, up, and over. Do you want to change your background color? Feel free. Okay. Now, I have my up, I have my over. That red is really red. Less red. I like that better. Now it's time to define what you want your mouse to look like when it goes down. So I'm going to position my cursor. I'm going to again copy the contents from my over to my down. F6. If you wanted to work with your first text, you could. So you could copy frames and paste frames. It's your choice. To show you how I would do that, I would clear that keyframe, I would copy frames, and I would paste frames. And then I would have what's in my first frame in my down, just so you can see that. All right, let's change this up. So I still have my gradient, but maybe what I want to do is I want to change my filter. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my gradient bevel. So click on the gradient bevel and right at the bottom, delete your filter. I can now leave it solid black, or if I wanted to, I could create a different kind of bevel. Instead of a gradient bevel, I could create a inner bevel. So notice where the light points change up? So if I go to my up and my down, do you see how I just have the change in light? I like it. That's good. Now we have our hit area. The hit area is usually just a black box to define the clickable area. So in my hit area, instead of hitting F6, copying the contents from the previous cell, I'm going to hit F7 to create an empty keyframe. Now I'm going to simply draw a rectangle that has the fill of a solid black box, defining my click area. There I am. That's my click area. Don't worry about the lines. So I'm ready to test my button. To test my scene, notice that I have my rollover and look at my down. So I have my up, my over, and my down. I know it's not the prettiest button, but you get the point. All right, we have created a button. We're going to go back to scene 1 now and add the action that will make this button work. Notice that I have my button. It's selected. It's in the property window. It's in my scene 1. Make sure that you name your buttons. So you want to always name your instance. So in this case, I'm going to call this MHHS underline BTN. We're going to refer to MHHS underline BTN in our action script. So our button is created and we have given our button a name. We called it MHHS underline button. We now want to add the action script so it jumps to the website. Flash CS6 has something called code snippets. Code snippets are shortcuts, pre-written action scripts to help you. Go to the window menu. Under the window menu, look for code snippets. Code snippets opens up its own menu, and notice how they are grouped together. The timeline navigation relates to movement within a Flash movie. We want to go to a website, so we go up to the Actions menu. In the Actions menu, here it is, the very first one. Click to go to a web page. Select Click to go to a web page. To find out more information about the snippet, you can hit the Show Description button. We're going to apply it to a keyframe. My button is selected. I can see it in my property window. Look at the first tool, Add to Current Frame. Click. Notice that it creates its own actions layer in your timeline, and it opens up the code. Notice that instructions are provided for you. It also grabbed the name of our instance and put it in the script itself. We want to go to the Morris Hills website, so I'm going to take off the www.adobe.com and simply put in mhrd.org. Close out your snippet. Let's test the button. Please be sure to save your file. Here's the button, and I have gone to the Morris Hills website. You've done it.